Hello and welcome back to Logan Sounds Off. Today on my podcast, I'm going to be reviewing Watermark by Enya, a classic album that I've had on vinyl for quite a while now, but recently for this review I've delved into and I've been very stunned by its fantastic contents. It comes here with the lyric sheet as well as some photography as well. Obviously a very creative and inspiring album cover here, which continues onto the back, which also features your track list as well as some other information at the bottom about when it was released, 1988, all looking very handwritten, which is quite beautiful and adds to the organic and very interesting nature of this record that we're going to be getting into very soon. But before we get into the track list, my track highlight, rating, album art notes, and much more, I do want to ask you, if you are watching me on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel if you're a long time watcher. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoy this video, give it a like. If you think one of your friends or family may enjoy it, please share. And if you have any comments on this album or the review, please do comment down below and I will try and reply to you. As well as this, if you are on Spotify or another podcast streaming service, please do leave a comment if you have any opinions that you would like to share, and follow me and make sure to add notifications on so that you will never miss a new episode, because I post quite regularly, as well as on my social media where I publish a 60-second album review on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday, as well as clips from past interviews and upcoming ones, as well as updates and interviews that will be coming out soon. All of that will be linked on my website, www.logansoundsoff.com, linked down below. Please check that out. So it's now time to get into the album. First of all, once you open up this album, the first thing that you're going to discover before you even put the needle, you lower the needle, not drop the needle onto it, you lower the needle, you get your lyrics. But primarily what I'd love to talk to you about is the vocals on this album, which are just spectacular. I find them very relaxing, and I feel like Enya's vocal performance on this album, especially on certain songs, can determine the tone of a song. It's quite a tone setter, whereas if Enya might have a much more delicate voice or a kind of reserved voice in a song, it nearly adds more space for ambient soundscapes that kind of envelop your speakers throughout listening to this album, which we'll get into soon. So I think her vocals really determine the sound of a song, which is really important. And obviously Enya's vocals are what she's very well known for, so that will be expected. But I feel like she does such fantastic singing on this album, but not as a general style. The styles that she uses and the way she uses them, I think, is also just as important as her singing voice. As well as this then, with the vinyl as well, just kind of keeping it to the vinyl, you'll notice this is just one album, but it's actually quite long, not in length. Like, this isn't an hour long album that's split into two sides. This is just your standard album, but there's a lot of songs in it, but they don't feel nearly like wasted, that they're 1 minute interludes or 2 minute tracks or anything. They actually are quite lengthy, or they've, even if they are maybe a little bit shorter, they are very well developed and have a lot of emotional and very interesting content on them, which makes them really special. And speaking of that content that makes the music really special, I would love to speak about the diversity of sound and instruments used on this album. I really feel like getting to my next point in a moment, but mainly Enya uses so much interesting sound to portray that emotion that is, first of all, determined by her vocal style that she uses and establishes on a song, but also where she has her instruments in it that also nearly carries out that emotional portrait that Enya is trying to paint through her music. And I think that also kind of plays into my next point about the record, which is it's definitely a fusion record. I mean, obviously it blends some elements of Irish traditional Irish music, which I reviewed on my channel a bit, and I love traditional Irish music, and I've got to have some traditional Irish musicians as guests on my podcast, and I've seen some gigs that are trad But I feel like Enya just takes this to a whole new level because it's so different and so interesting, because nearly there's some fusion that's quite common, but especially regarding trad music. But I feel like what Enya establishes on this record is very, very different, and her own style, nearly her own watermark, I guess, kind of, for the name of the title of the album. I mean, it works. It's her watermark. It's her nearly imprint on her love of music, but she uses it as to portray her emotions. And I think that's beautiful, and that kind of fusion as well with the different textures on this album, and also dynamics. I mean, these 2 points kind of play into each other. Is that there's so many different textures on this record. There's so many different themes. There's so many different, maybe like very, very quiet tracks, like the first one that we have, Watermark, which is quite an interesting and beautiful piece that introduces us to the record. Or if it's a classic like Oracono Flow, which I do have actually something to say about before I get into my track highlight, which will be at the end of the review. Spoiler alert, my track highlight is not Oracono Flow. But overall, the dynamics and the textures on this record are just really, really stunning, and I really, really love them. So that's kind of my overview of this record. So now it's kind of time for me to talk about my track highlight and my rating. So starting off with, before I get into my track highlight, I love the song Orokono Flow. It's my favourite song in this album, and I think it's the best performed, and I think it's the most interesting. But my track highlight isn't meant to be my track highlight on the channel. It isn't meant to be, and it's something that I've recently done. Track highlight, I've picked my favourite tracks out, but I've started doing my track highlight. The track highlight is meant to kind of establish the sound, and I think the title track, Watermark, is my track highlight for this video, because or audio if you're listening as a podcast, Watermark just is so diverse and really expresses what's expressed on this album. Even though it's the first track, I get that, but it still is just the best track on this album to explain, kind of, without me speaking, without me reviewing. I think it's the best way of me saying what she kind of establishes on this record. Now, speaking about Oracono Flow, I love this song. I think it's really, really cool. I think it's very, very diverse in its instrumentation. I think it is very well performed, and I think it's very well produced. I think the sound is fantastic on this track. It sounds so vast and beautiful and inspired, but I don't think it represents only one side of this album, and that's why I didn't put it as my track highlight. And I guess most of you out there will understand that, but to any diehard fans for that song, I'm sorry. But the link will be down below to that track highlight, Watermark, as well as the album, obviously, to stream or buy on her website. And then before we get into my rating, I'd love to just talk about the album art briefly. I did at the introduction, but I do just want to kind of expand, sorry. I really love this album art, because this is a glossy finish on the vinyl, so it's actually quite colourful for you guys at certain angles on camera, or if you're listening on the podcast, please do check out my show notes at my website, links down below, to see kind of the album art. And for me, I've got a very glossy finish on the vinyl, so I've got a really, really cool track list and everything. Honestly, I just really, really love the presentation of this. Obviously, coming with a lyric sheet and vinyl holder is really, really awesome as well. And also, before I do finish this review out, I want to give out a big thank you to my uncle for giving me this record. When I was just starting my record collection, he gave this to me along with, I think, 30 other albums that he thought I'd enjoy, and I really enjoyed this record, so big shout out to him for giving me this. I really, really appreciate it, and it's just super, super cool. So now, time for the rating. I'm going to rate this a solid 4.5 stars out of 5, because I thought that Enya explored a lot on this album, and I just thought she did it beautifully. So that's my review of Watermark by Enya. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.